When I was at a retreat a few years ago, I met a woman whose call to ministry was working with people who had been deeply wounded by the church. She worked with women who had been driven out of their congregations for leaving abusive husbands. She worked with addicts who had been told that they could overcome their addictions if they only had enough faith. She worked with prostitutes who had little to no hope because people who called themselves Christians had already condemned them to hell. And as I listened to her share horror story after horror story, I wondered, how safe is the church really? This is the 4th week in a 7-week series about our new vision at St. John the Apostle United Methodist Church. If you wonder why we have a telescope and humongous binoculars and what's his name? Glasses. Yeah, Harry Potter glasses. If you wonder why we've got them on the altar, it's because they're all about vision. And that's what what we've been working on here. Our vision says that we will make disciples of Jesus Christ by celebrating each person's sacred worth and offering them safe space to meet Christ, use their God-given gifts, and grow in their faith. So the first week of this series, we looked at how important it is for a community of faith to have a vision that everybody is working together toward. The second week, we thought about what it means to make disciples of Jesus Christ, and we talked about how it takes disciples to make disciples. The third week, last week, our focus was on celebrating each person's sacred worth. And today, we look at what it means to offer people safe space. When you look at what it means to offer safe space, you cover a whole list of items. Making sure that the facility and the grounds are safe from anything that could lead to an injury. I know a whole group of trustees were here yesterday, making sure that that parking lot and that front north-facing sidewalk was ready for you to walk up it this morning. Also on the list, making sure that our children and our vulnerable adults are protected from predators. Making sure that we have people trained to use AEDs and to perform CPR in case there's an emergency. Making sure that we have a plan in case of inclement weather. Making sure our guardians are ready to protect us in case of an unwanted intruder. And yet there's more. The safe space in our vision statement not only includes these physical realities, it also includes the spiritual reality that we all need a refuge where we can be honest about who we are and the areas in which we need to grow. We need a place where people can speak and hear the truth spoken in love, not in condemnation and judgment. We need a place where we can explore and refine and grow in our faith without having to worry about what others are going to think. Of course, Christ is our ultimate safe space, but we also need physical places in the world around us where we can ask questions and explore new ideas without worrying about becoming the topic of gossip and ridicule and shame. And to be really honest, I have to admit that I have seen the kind of safe space I'm talking about more in bars than I have in churches. But the leadership at SJA UMC believes that God is calling us, God is calling this church, God is calling this congregation to be a church where physical and spiritual safety are prime. As poet Liz Newman writes, we all need a safe space. We all need a safe space to rest our tired feet and set down our weary hearts. We all need a friend who welcomes us in and reminds us that we don't have to be perfect to belong. Others online, like Black Christian leader, speaker, writer, and teacher Mickey Scott Bay Jones, believes that there's no such thing as safe space and that what we really need is brave space. Quoting from her poem, Invitation to Brave Space, Jones says, "We exist in the real world. We all carry scars and we have all caused wounds. In this space, we seek to turn down the volume of the outside world. We amplify voices that fight to be heard elsewhere. We call each other to more truth and love. We have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. We have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. We will not be perfect. This space will not be perfect. It will not always be what we wish it to be. But it will be our brave space together, and we will work on it side by side." So whether you want to call it safe space or brave space, we will work on it side by side here at SJA UMC. Why? Because as Christian psychologist Allison Cook writes in the website churchleaders.com, church hurt is soul crushing. Can you hear that? Church hurt is soul crushing. What does that mean? Well, it means that some people have been so hurt by the church that they've lost part or all of their faith in God. When the people whom we trust manipulate, shame, reject, or use others for selfish gain, Cook writes, the effects are extremely painful and confusing. It hits us where we are most tender, causing us to question both God in our own sense and our own sense of worth. In some cases, the pain can cause us to wonder, if the church can hurt me so deeply, then what does that say about God? Who is God anyway? Can he really be trusted? In other words, what they're saying is, if God is like the people who call themselves his followers, then why would I want to do anything with the faith? Mahatma Gandhi once said, "If it weren't for Christians, I'd be a Christian." Gandhi chose to be Hindu because of the war-loving Christians that he encountered, whose focus was more on wealth than on the teachings of Jesus Christ. "I like your Christ, but not your Christianity," he said. I don't know about you, but the last thing that I want is for my words or my actions to cause anyone to turn away from God or reject Jesus Christ or think that God could never love them. And that's the thing. It only takes one person's judgmental attitude to destroy people who are working and seeking God's presence and peace in their lives. And believe me, those injured people will tell everyone that they know that it's not safe to go to that church. In an article titled 5 Ways Judgmental Christians Are Killing Your Church, Carrie Nieuwhof, a best-selling author and founder of Connexus Church, writes, "Jesus said, Christians should be known for how deeply we love. Yet studies show that in the eyes of many non-Christians, we're known for how deeply we judge, not how deeply we love." He later adds, "If you want to kill evangelism at your church, fill your church with judgmental Christians." We don't want to be that church. What our vision declares is that we want to be a church that gives people brave, safe space to encounter Christ and use their gifts and grow in their faith. As poet Katie Kemp writes, "Let's make a safe space where we value our differences as they expand us. Find the humanity that unites us. Let's make welcoming space where we build each other up, share our burdens, draw each other toward redemption space. Not a correcting space, but a I hear you space. Not a complaining space, but a shouldering burdens so that you can remember to take heart space. Your glory takes nothing from mind space. It enhances the God colors, and we're about making them shine space. It's in these fractals that we see more of what God's design is. A delighting, insisting, with us in the mess and the glory space. Lord, please let it be. Amen. Amen.